Okay, we're entering the beginning. 10 November 1775, the Continental Congress resolved that we would raise 2 battalions of Marines. Now, he didn't write, and we didn't sign the paper until the 4th of July. In fact, he did it without spell check. Now, what did the Continental Congress know about Marines? Well, they knew how to put together an army, what it was going to take to put together an army, because they fought with the British. Okay, alongside them, they understood that, as did the commander-in-chief at that time. But they knew if we were going to fight the British, we were going to need ships. All we knew about navies was from the Dutch and from the Brits, and both the Dutch and the Brits had Marines on their ships. Their mission was to seize forward naval bases, protect the ships, make the sailors behave. These are the ones from the riggings. These are the ones that do the little amphibious landing. In fact, the British Admiral made a statement: a ship without Marines is like a coat without flames. So we're going to raise 2 battalions of Marines. That's about 2,000 Marines. I think it's 130-something officers. The first captain was commissioned as a guy by the name of Captain Samuel Nicholas, who would later on become our very first commandant. His first mission was to raise those 2 battalions of Marines. He had a buddy by the name of Robert Mullins, who owned a tavern. Do I have any Masons in here? Any Masons? Anyway, Tug Tavern, there was a Masonic lodge that the conception of masonry from the United States started right there at Tug Tavern. Tug Tavern was located right down from the docks there in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's where you're going to get these crazy guys who will climb up these rigging, going to be sharpshooters, going to do things that Marines do on these ships. Mullins loaned that to Captain Nicholas as his first recruiting station, and I hear the first recruiting marketing plan was, as a guy come by, look like he might be a good Marine, I'll give you this beer free if you sign this piece of paper. And his buddy, I think it cost 2 beers, and we've been pretty much keeping up the same thing. The main thing about being a Marine is we're going to give you a challenge. You be a Marine or not, most of you know the very first verse. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. What's the problem with that there as far as history?
It was Chapultepec now.
Well, from the halls of Montezuma, shores of Tripoli. Right. The Mexican thing happened after. See, a lot of people say, well, why is it that way? My response is, don't rhyme the other.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
The other thing is, what our hymn tells you, what we've done. Okay? And it tells you where we've done it. And our final verse is, when you arrive on heaven's scenes, you're going to find the streets are going to be guarded by the United States. It is the oldest service song that we have. And the Marine Corps is the only one that has a hymn. Everybody else has only got a song. It makes us different. Let's talk about a little bit about the shores of Tripoli. Now guys, the book's about this thick, okay? I'm going to sensationalize it, make it a little more fun for you to listen to, but I'm going to cut it down because we only have a few minutes. Over in the northern coast of Africa, Morocco, Algiers, Libya, there was a group called the Barbary Pirates, and what they were doing, they were capturing ships and people and holding them hostage. Now the leaders of these countries right there didn't mind that because they were paying some of the revenue to them, and plus they had some kind of protection with the Barbary Pirates. This had even been going on before the Revolutionary War. So the Brits and the French are actually paying this stuff. What happens is one of our ships gets captured, okay? And there are people and they're holding hostage. Thomas Jefferson is now president. Now he's a pretty smart guy. He was the one that wrote the paper and didn't use spell check. And those of you guys that study him, he was a brilliant guy. I mean, our leaders were brilliant. He was a brilliant guy. He had a lot of interest and really neat skill sets. He would pay $1 million to build a military. He's not going to pay 1 cent for a hostage. So he didn't email and call him, but the commandant come on over to the White House. He says, hey, I'll send some Marines over there and see if they can do something about them Barbary Pirates. Okay? He selected a lieutenant by the name of Presley O'Bannon from Fauquier County, Virginia, by the way, an accomplished violinist. O'Bannon selected 7 enlisted Marines. They crossed the ocean, they got to Egypt. They gathered up some mercenaries. They crossed 600 miles of desert, and this is going to be the first, sea and land battle we're ever going to deal with. Like I said, there's a lot in the story, but I sensationalized it, shortened it down. And we had a little chat with the Barbary Pirates. A lot of firsts happened during that time. The first time okay, I want to talk a little bit about Zealand here. Not because I like the US here, but Jacob Zealand is going to come top of this. One thing he's going to do is very, very special to stay in the same place. Up until that time, our Marine Corps had changed several times. Jacob Zealand came to Commandant of the Marine Corps. He's going to standardize the Marine Corps image. He's going to say it's going to consist of the eagle, which is going to represent our nation, the globe, which is going to represent our worldwide service, and the anchor, which is going to represent our sea heritage or the relationship with nations. Hence, eagle, the globe, and the anchor, and it's virtually stayed the same since 1868. Jacob Zealand.
Guys, pick him up and get all that. Yeah, it's just good.
It's right for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us. That from these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last measure of devotion. We here highly resolve that these brothers
reimagining. Unleashing a gilded age of entrepreneurial spirit and national ambition. Really? The flood of innovation and opportunity did not be held back by the coastlines or the 4 points of the compass.
The time there, 1866 to about 1916. Pretty much after the Civil War, okay? And pretty much right before World War I. What was happening then? Well, the Army was pretty much doing what they do on the plains. I always say they're chasing Cochise, Sitting Bull. Army's doing Army things, getting all this kind of press. We all watch John Wayne movies. The Marine Corps pretty much was staying forwardly deployed. We were expeditionary, carrying our nation's flag all over the world. And during this time, we were fighting a lot of small wars. Some of them called the Banana Wars. We were in Cuba, the Philippines. We were in Mexico. There was a lot of places we were going, okay? But one of the things that's happening during that time, our Marine officers knew, our headquarters knew we needed to do something to stay strong. The Army is always wanting to break us up, make us part of the Army, do away with it. So we raised the standards for our officers. They were all coming out of the academy. We raised the standards for our enlisted. We put a bigger emphasis on marching.
The nation now looks to the Navy and Marines, our seagoing fighting forces, with a critical strategic mission to seize and secure foreign ports as advanced naval bases and coaling stations.
What's going to happen when we enter World War I? We're going to get the world.
In a contentious modern world, where industrialized empires clash with each other and local populations for dominance, the small expeditionary Marine Corps had their work cut out for them. The old breed, indomitable leathernecks who spoke in nautical terms, fought in the far-flung jungles and ancient crossroads of the world as America fled.
Everybody else give me stuff. Well, some people don't like it. I want to point out this painting for just a second, not because I think it's actually explaining. What it is during the Boxer Rebellion. The Boxers were a group of Chinese that did not want any Westerns in China. So what this caused was all the Western nations sent military units to China to protect their legation. Who's the United States going to send? They're going to send United States Marines. I say these are probably our first Marine security guards. There was a private there at the time by the name of Dan Daly. Dan Daly was put on a post behind the legation by his company commander. He left. The next day he came back because he told him not to leave his post. He came back. Dan Daly had already fixed bayonets. It ran out of ammunition. There was over 200 boxers dead around Dan Daly. This is where Dan Daly received his very first Medal of Honor. His second he would receive in Haiti. I want to show you one more thing because I'm going to talk about it when we get to the Medal of Honor. Here's Smedley Butler. Here's the other double Medal of Honor recipient. But when you look at Smedley, you see he's wearing 2 ribbons of the Medal of Honor. I want you to remember that. Every time you see him, he's usually wearing a dress blue or service uniform. He's always wearing 2 ribbons of the Medal of Honor. We get over the Medal of Honor wall, I'm going to expand on that a little bit, just so you know what he looks like. He looks a little crazy on the Medal of Honor.